Feel at Home Pet Care, and I wanted to talk about vaccines, and I've been wanting to do this for a while. I actually wanted to do it before the start of the year so that when people are getting their rabies certificates renewed in their town, they would have some advice about renewing vaccines and revaccinating their pet. But it's just such a wide, varied topic, and there are so many opinions, and there's a lot of controversy about vaccinating, not vaccinating. There are holistic veterinarians who believe that you should never vaccinate your pet, and then there are veterinarians who vaccinate animals every single year, maybe unnecessarily. So my take on it is in between. I think we should be vaccinated, just like people should be vaccinated. But the difference between pets and people is that as babies, we are vaccinated for something, and then we're not revaccinated every single year. With our animals, there are recommendations about vaccines, and those recommendations are not always the best thing for your pet. There are a lot of other factors that you should think about. So for myself, I was vaccinated for rabies because I work in an industry where I am at risk for being in contact with a rabid animal, and I want to be protected. But I was vaccinated over 25 years ago, and I've had my titers checked and they are fine. So 25 years that vaccine has lasted. And yet for my pets, when you ask for a titer, sometimes you're looked at kind of funny, like why would you titer your pet? And then within the industry, it's frowned upon because they think, well, why don't you just revaccinate the pet? It's easier to give an injection than to take blood and send it to the lab, and that can be costly. But there is a risk to over-vaccinating your pet. Every time you vaccinate them, if they're already protected, then you keep putting a stress on their immune system. So times not to vaccinate are when your pet is ill. So if you have a pet that is sick, has an upper respiratory infection, something that they're going through right now, do not vaccinate. If you have a pet that is chronically ill with something like cancer or kidney disease, or any kind of inflammatory bowel disease, chronic kidney failure, things like that, just don't vaccinate and talk to your veterinarian about it. So rabies is the only vaccine that you are actually by law required to have for your pet, and each town enforces that law. And quite honestly, the law is not quite updated yet with the scientific research. There has been a study done that was an 8-year study on animals, and they showed that within the 8-year period, a pet was still vaccinated throughout that entire time for rabies. Then the study ended, so they restarted the study again, but it's going to take some time to see the results. So that just goes to prove that these vaccines do last. So rabies is really the one vaccine that is required by law that you need to get. And if your pet is not able to be vaccinated, your veterinarian can sign off on a waiver. There are other vaccines that are also core vaccines that are recommended by the American Veterinary Association and certain state medical boards, but they're not required. So core vaccines for dogs are things like distemper, parvo, and rabies goes under there also. And now leptospirosis is a vaccine that is becoming a core vaccine in some states, depending on if your pet is susceptible to it. And then for cats, feline leukemia is now becoming a core vaccine. Of course, rabies, feline distemper. And with cats, you need to be careful with vaccines because at the injection site, they can develop something called a sarcoma. And that is a little tumor that starts to grow. And that is why they give these vaccines on the lower legs of the animal, so that if a tumor grows, they can actually amputate that leg. Which goes to show that you should really make wise decisions when vaccinating your pet because you have to weigh the risk. So is your pet at risk of developing one of these diseases? How high is that risk? And then if they are at risk, then do the vaccine responsibly. Maybe don't do all the vaccines at once. You can actually get vaccines one at a time where they're not in a combination vaccine, and you'll have to talk to your veterinarian about that. And you might have to push for it a little bit. It's not something that all veterinarians are used to doing. So it might take a little bit of effort. But I hope this helps you at least start to think about vaccines. There's a lot of information out there that you can research before vaccinating your pet. And if you want, we are expanding on this in the Learn at Home Pet Care membership site. So we're going to keep going into this topic where I talk more about vaccines and what they are and what the risks might be for either over-vaccination or risks of not vaccinating your pet. And we will also go over the process for doing titers for your pet and going from that stage to having a veterinarian sign a waiver for your town rabies certificate if that's the way that you want to go. So I hope this is helpful. So join us for more on this topic, and I'd love to hear what you are doing